Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and agricultural meteorologist Greg Soulje is here with us today on this Tuesday. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Sarah. Nice to be with you on what has become a fairly active and for some folks across the Eastern Plains and especially Southern Corn Belt, moisture-laden one. Once again, some examples of just enough in some spots, generally speaking, others way too much of a good thing. And we'll talk about that here going forward over the next few minutes.
Yeah, hearing reports 7 inches of rain. I think there was 79-mile-an-hour winds at Midway Airport here outside of Chicago, and kind of crazy. So probably lots to talk about here.
Yeah, and I'm sure that some of those winds certainly impacted, at least to a certain degree, some of the corn and soybean fields. But the stands are virtually next to nil, and hopefully they are greening up as opposed to yellowing in the warmth over the past few days. But we'll take a look at some of the headlines here going forward, Sarah. And on this 19th of May, moving right along into the month of May, and as it applies to the Corn Belt, pretty active weather pattern continues on with a cold front slowly on the move over the lower Great Lakes region. It trails back out of the southern plains. Ahead of it, across the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic region over some of those dry, drought-ridden grounds. We'll take a look at it. Temperatures will be up into the low to mid 90s, but a fairly warm weather pattern for the time of year, but nothing out of control. And we've seen, again, some significant rainfall into parts of especially west central and central Missouri the past couple of 2 or 3 days. And some of those rains did trickle into the I-70 corridor of Illinois and Indiana, as in 3 to almost 7 inches and a pretty wide swath of generally 5 to 8 inches in that central Missouri, far southwestern reaches of the Corn Belt. Some of those multi-inch rains as well impacted parts of southeast Nebraska, parts of Iowa, a couple of spots up through Wisconsin, and especially eastern parts of Kansas. Note the weather guy has made no mention of some of the worst dry, drought-ridden areas of the winter wheat belt. The just high wind and increased fire concerns out there, so that the problem continues on in quite the range of soil moisture levels across the central and southern plains. Meanwhile, despite the wet weather, still making some relatively good inroads. I suspect there'll be a need for some replanting now into parts of these far southwestern and southern Corn Belt areas, but about 76% of the corn in the ground, 67% of the beans in the ground, and we're in generally good shape. No real issues regarding soil moisture levels. We're probably at adequate to now surplus levels. Some drier patches as you get out over the northwestern reaches of the Corn Belt, but more rain back in the forecast despite its scattered nature and favoring the southern plains and the Gulf Coast. Will be a little trickle-down effect northward of some of those rains over the course of the Memorial Day holiday weekend. On the flip side of this weather system, unusually chilly weather, even for parts of the northern and central Rockies and the Divide Country. We'll take a look at some snow that occurred across the west, and it was record-setting snow for parts of Wyoming and Montana. In any event, they were in the upper 20s to lower 30s across a good chunk of the central and western Dakotas, those spring grain areas. Some of that cold made it to about North Platte and west from there towards Divide Country. And you go off to the east and southeast again, too much of a good thing in parts of southeastern Nebraska. Of course, that eastern Nebraska, Corn Palace, Sioux Empire region was really clocked a few days ago with numerous reports of tornadic activity, hail, high wind, and so some issues out there regarding maybe some recovery going on. Of course, the cold weather generating maybe some degree of burn back on winter wheat forages as well. Might take a little bit of a heat across, again, the central and western reaches of the northern and central plains. Otherwise, showers and thunderstorms scattered across parts of the southern plains, Oklahoma, and Texas here for the day today. The heat is the story, and the dryness and the drought the story across the mid-Atlantic region, the southeastern states. There'll be areas around the nation's capital not far off the century mark for the day today. Strong cold front is on the move, and it'll generate some severe weather over the mid-south parts of Cotton Belt country over the next couple of days, but at least some rain in the forecast, and that front will stall out there. Upper level winds are going to be weakening, and so better propensity for some rainfall. It may be these rains that are all at once and they don't move, but at least there's some rain in the forecast for parts of Texas, Bayou country, the Delta, and southeastern states going into the weekend and next week as well. While it's warm across the Pacific West, and of course virtually no significant runoff on snow left over across the central and southern Sierra, they did get accumulating snow, 8 inches plus in Lander, Wyoming, 6.5 around area areas of Salt Lake City and Alta, Utah. That is kind of unusual for the time of year. And of course, we talked about the frost and freeze that made it into parts of the northern and central Rockies and High Plains areas over the past couple of mornings. There is the visible satellite picture. A lot of cloud cover for the time of year, especially with this cold front. And so while we'll get the front to pass on through, a lot of the folks in the northern and eastern plains, western and northern Corn Belt will stay stuck in cloud cover for the day today. And those showers and thunderstorms are doing their thing down across Texas. There's the upper level wind pattern, pretty snappy troughs, so those U-shaped bending configuration of the jet stream, or at least upper level winds. One northern branch across the northern plains, another one moving through the southwest and Intermountain West. And it'll be those two systems that plow eastbound over the next couple of days. A little circulation there in the southwestern Atlantic, a bit unusual, but some gusty winds and some squally weather east of Jamaica and around Bermuda here at the current time. There's low pressure spinning its way through the Great Lakes region, trailing cold front down into the Oklahoma, Texas panhandle country, and it's milder Pacific air, more seasonal temperatures behind it. No real cold air in sight anytime soon. A couple of days back to seasonal norms across the plains and Corn Belt, and then we're going to heat things up all over again, build some of that Atlantic and southeastern heat to the west, northwest, so there are warmer days still ahead, and warming of soils for some of the Corn Belt areas. Most of the organized wet weather outbreaks down through eastern Texas, the southwestern sections, most of the Corn Belt, lower Missouri Valley, heading into the mid-Mississippi Valley, lower Ohio Valley, and you can see some shower activity across the northern Great Lakes region into the southeastern and southern sections of the spring Canadian grain belt at the current time. In any event, there's the cold front lined up from the Sioux down to about the Metroplex, and showers and thunderstorms that they're more vigorous and best coverages down through Texas. The southeastern plains, lower Mississippi Valley, again, forages and pasture lands and rangelands will get the rain, appreciate the rain over the south end of cattle country. But for winter wheat, forget about it. It's just too late for anything to really matter going forward here for the rest of May and into the summertime season. A few sprinkles over the northwestern Corn Belt, better coverage, showers, thunderstorms this afternoon, probably favoring Ohio, Indiana, far southeast Illinois, and points south and southwest from there. And again, a few spotty sprinkles into the upper Mississippi Valley. There are the showers and thunderstorms by the time we get to tomorrow morning into the Ohio Valley, down into the north end of the Delta, and even a couple of thunderstorms right around Lubbock and Amarillo into West Texas cotton country. And there is a nice light up on the radar, at least as it's depicted here, or at least the expectation of showers and thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. Parts of western Kansas, the Oklahoma panhandle, some of the worst drought areas of western Texas. So a little something getting going over the next 24 to 36 hours, and some moisture too into the mid-Atlantic region. That cold front will generate some pretty rough weather, I think, tomorrow afternoon, in particular, nations, at least around the mid-Atlantic region, nation's capital, and southwest into the Delta and southern Plain States areas with showers and thunderstorms. And things do look pretty promising. There's a couple of small stream, weak upper air configurations in the southern branch of the jet, which is still into play and will come into the play farther north in the coming next to 2 weeks from a rainfall standpoint. But some nice rainfall predicted for parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and still lingering across the mid-Atlantic region. Again, probably too late for winter wheat. Very much positive for pasture lands and rangelands and cattle operations on the central and southern plains. There is the severe weather expectation this afternoon and evening time. Slight risk much of Texas into the southern and eastern Corn Belt, into the lower Great Lakes region. Of course, the past couple of days, it's been a moderate risk over parts of the western reaches of Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri. They got it pretty good in the past couple of days over there. And the fire concerns kind of retrograding a bit into Arizona and New Mexico. The next couple of days, most of the organized rainfall into eastern Kansas, still coming down in the wettest areas, and probably some replanting, standing water issues over the far southwestern Corn Belt areas of Missouri. Some nice rains that is for southeast and southern Illinois, central and southern Indiana. Again, the I-70 corridor, probably too much of a good thing into standing water there in some of the fields with the showers and thunderstorms into eastern Texas. Temps there, generally speaking, into the low to mid 80s into these far southeastern and eastern Corn Belt, except for parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, with some low 90s there, mid to upper 90s into the nation's capital, and maybe parts of North Carolina, maybe outside of Raleigh, Durham, close to 100 this afternoon, and some of that heat still lingers over the far southeastern states and mid-Atlantic region again for the day tomorrow. But you can see over the middle part of the country, readings into the 60s and 70s, a couple degrees below average. But we'll get some sunshine to return, get drying going for the end part of the week over the wetter areas of the Corn Belt, and see temperatures begin to recover back into more or less early June levels, so a little above as we move forward into the holiday weekend and beyond. Upper level winds through the next week time frame. You can see kind of a fragmented set of steering currents. One northerly branch that brings the system into the Pacific Northwest Sunday to Monday. A little piece of the hot high over the southwestern states returns. And you can see some of those southerly component winds, those last couple of lines out of Texas and in the Ohio Valley. It's a pretty good direct run of moisture northward, a couple of weak embedded systems in that. So at least a couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms. Unfortunately, it's focused for the wetter areas of the Corn Belt, but so some of those rains will build back over the rest of the complex and the eastern plains too, probably at some point middle to late parts of next week. So we are not for now going into a very dry weather pattern. And by the way, El Nino is a topic of course, discussion ongoing, by the way. We'll touch on that in just a second. In any event, through the upcoming weekend, front makes it through over the course of the next 24 hours, stalls out at the Ohio Valley, actually farther south across Cotton Belt country. A little piece of it works north. And once again, we introduce a couple of showers, thunderstorms, subtle flow off the Gulf of Mexico. So not completely rain-free. Comfortable for mid to late May. Temperatures a few degrees above average. Humidity may come back up, and we'll be chasing around these daily 30 to 50% coverage outbreaks of showers and thunderstorms over parts of the plains and Corn Belt areas. So, maybe plan B in mind just in case if you've got a cookout or activities for the holiday weekend. Lots of dry hours, lots of at least blended skies, sunshine, and lots of opportunity to do what you have to do on the outside, both work-wise and holiday-wise here for the holiday weekend. Any real concerning weather would be some of the heavy rainfall prospects over some of the drier ground areas of Texas and into the lower Mississippi Valley. So cold front moves into the Great Lakes region. We'll get another system to move into the Pacific Northwest, another round of some late season high peak and high elevation snows. And so that's pretty interesting for the time of year. Otherwise, widespread showers and thunderstorms over the central and southern plains, eastern states, and the southeastern part of the country, with another 1 to 2 in some of the wetter areas of the Corn Belt, and probably a general 2 to 4, some outlier 5 to 6 inch totals possible parts of Texas, Delta region, and southeastern states going forward. I think that 6-inch number is a little bit out in left field, but the general right idea, the next few days, most of the organized rains in the eastern and southern Corn Belt, heaviest along and south of I-70. Again, maybe some standing water and ponding in some of the fields still yet to come over the far southeastern Corn Belt. Significant welcome rains, and because the grounds are so big, dry, and drought-ridden, sometimes these rains just run off, so flash flood potential heightening over the southeastern plains, lower Mississippi Valley, Delta region, and some welcome rain too into some of the worst drought areas of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. So hopefully some more positive bent to the weather going forward here, despite the heavy nature of rain in the central and southern plains. That's the drought monitor from late last week. Gone over a wide area of the Corn Belt, little drier patch out towards the Corn Palace, Sioux Empire region, probably will have been taken care of off of recent rains. And so you can see the worst drought areas in Texas and the Oklahoma Panhandle, southeastern Texas, Delta region, southeastern states. Don't think there'll be a super improvement into Georgia and Florida going forward, but some relief expected in the southeastern part of the country over the next few weeks. And there is the drought monitor as it applies to the Corn Belt, probably west and northwest of Des Moines, but that's been taken care of, I think, on recent rains and some shower activity into areas north of the Twins. So again, maybe this coming week's drought monitor has virtually nothing to speak of in many areas of the Corn Belt. Next 6 to 10 days, a little troughiness in the Pacific Northwest, a little southerly branch to the jet coming up out of the southern plains, and that'll have a moisture-laden feel to it. And so we kind of keep this scenario of warm temperature readings to maybe summer-like in some areas, the upper Midwest into the eastern Corn Belt, where soil moisture is adequate or surplus, and we're not underwater over recent storms. And there ought to be some pretty good growth and development going forward here over the next 6 to 10 days. Shower activity may be returning into the parts of the upper Midwest, a very much wetter weather pattern down through the southern states. And very little change, a little more digging in the trough in the west, a little more ridging over the southeastern part of the country in the next couple of weeks, but still undercut. We can bring some sense of Gulf moisture, some daytime heating, weaken the ridge, and probably then generate some degree of rainfall as well going forward. And the warm temperatures, again, if you're in good shape soil moisture-wise, we'll get away from that yellow-looking stand and get some things to really grow and develop at a pretty nice pace over much of the Corn Belt areas. And yeah, maybe a little tendency to dry things out over the Great Lakes region. Might be a little overdone there, a little overdone on maybe some of the rains in New Mexico and Texas. But in any event, very much manageable going forward as we get ready to roll into the 1st of June. We'll take a look at the for the rest of the forecast. By the way, the talk of El Nino, and just time to correct things and get things even keeled and lined up in that El Nino talk a little later in developing. There's no such thing as a Godzilla El Nino, such thing as a super El Nino, but maybe a moderate to maybe strong one, a little more delayed. So, if we play our cards right, Sarah, and if we get, moisture where we need it to be, and we don't get out of control on heat or extended dryness, and things move along, and usually in an El Nino, it's materializing in a stronger category, fall and early winter, that usually means pretty positive news from a harvest standpoint. Maybe not necessarily moisture in the parts of the plain states going forward, maybe later in the wintertime there, but moderate to maybe strong El Nino lining up here for fall and maybe winter, which would tend to keep things kind of mild and quiet and manageable. A lack of organized snows for the Midwest and the Corn Belt, a little more moisture for the southern states where we need it. And that's kind of the thinking going forward here, at least on El Nino, and nothing of an Armageddon standpoint, nothing that's going to, I think, really, if you can kind of keep things even keeled for moisture and temperatures, there may be some concern in the western Corn Belt and the plain states, but with increased dryness going forward, then we ought to be in relatively better shape here as we get deeper on into the summertime season. But we'll break it down going forward on the 27th next Wednesday.
We know you're on top of it and you're going to follow it for us, Greg. So we'll leave that in your capable hands. Appreciate it.
We'll do just that.
Very good. All right, Greg, thank you so much for joining us here today. And for all of you that have tuned in, we appreciate you being with us as well.